Welcome to Be Customer Led, where we'll explore how leading experts in customer and employee experience are navigating organizations through their own journey to be customer led and the actions and behaviors employees and businesses exhibit to get there. And now, your host, Bill Staikos.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Be Customer Led. I'm your host, Bill Staikos. I have a really amazing guest for you all this week. You're going to love this show. Stacy Salvi is the VP of Strategy for Movano. Now, I'm not going to give away what the company does. We're going to talk about it in a minute. But before we do, Stacy, welcome to the show. It's so great to have you on.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. My pleasure. So today, folks, we're talking about wearables and the customer experience. Now, Stacy is an expert in this field. She's been in this space for a while. Now Movano is a wearable company. We'll talk about that in a second, but has really just great, rich expertise in this space and a great journey, by the way. And so before we even get into it, just tell us about your journey, your professional career journey. I think you've got a really interesting story because not a lot of VP of strategy started off the way you started off. So let our listeners know how you kind of weaved into this role.
Yes, I would love to. So it's true. I think that I don't have a very traditional background, but I'm a lawyer by training. Started practicing quite some time ago. Maybe I won't even say how long ago.
This is not required for the show.
That's totally fair. And, I went directly in-house because I always loved the business side of things. And there was a period of time, I guess it was almost 10 years ago now, where I got pregnant, I got accepted to Berkeley Business School, and then I got a job offer at Fitbit. And I will tell you that I only picked 2 of the 3. I didn't end up going to business school, but that kind of led towards, where I am now, which has been a lot of fun. And so, I took the job in legal, even though I was really more interested in the business side, because, when you get offered a ride on a rocket ship, you don't ask what seat. And I was really happy helping them grow from 70 million revenue to 2 billion in revenue, doing all of their transactional work, product counseling, privacy, advertising, kind of everything in between, growing that legal department, which was awesome. But then at some point, my true passion kind of came back into the mix, and I wanted to switch over to the business side. And so I started to work more in BD and had the opportunity to be front and center in some of the relationship with Google as that started. And so also during that time, they supported my transition over to business. So I was the senior director of corporate alliances over there. And then I was doing some product management work as well. So that was fantastic. I really enjoyed all of those roles. I know there are a lot of different ones there. And then when the transaction closed between Google and Fitbit, Google bought Fitbit in 2019, and it closed the very beginning of 21. I was the head of strategic partnerships for Fitbit at Google. I loved Google's, adherence to excellence. I learned a ton from the team, and it was going to be a really exciting journey. But at a certain point, Movano came calling, and I was ready to build again and really excited to be a part of their journey. I was fascinated by what they were doing with sensor technology. And they say that you're going to shoot your shot. And so that's what I did.
That's awesome. That's a great story. And let's talk about Movano now. So tell our listeners a little bit about what the company is doing, what the product that they have, or products, I guess I should say, and kind of what's your role as VP of strategy at a company like Movano?
Yeah, absolutely. So Movano is a relatively small company, a little over 40 people. We are working on creating a wearable, but we were really put on the map due to our founders' knowledge of radio frequency technology. And so we've been working on a chip that can read blood pressure and blood glucose. But first, we're going to start with a ring for women. So I am leading product and business strategy. When I first started, I kind of helped identify what the roadmap should be, where I see us going for the next 5 years.
Hmm.
And then I turned almost all of my attention to bringing this first product to market. So doing a lot of product management work. What does it mean to develop for women? What
Hmm.
do women actually want? And, really supporting all parts of the organization. Of course, we're somewhat of a startup, so we all are wearing numerous hats, and it's been a lot of fun.
Is there a reason why the Movano decided to focus on women out of the gate with the product, or
So that decision was actually made before I started,
yeah?
but I think it was really amazing choice. When they started to dig into the state of wearables today, what they quickly discovered is that, you know, women are largely underserved in healthcare. When you
Hmm.
look back, women weren't even required to be included in clinical trials for medication until 1993. A
That's a
lot of
crazy.
women, it's crazy. And
It's
that was
nuts.
medication that they are taking.
Yeah.
And women feel really dismissed by doctors, and they have a lot of negative health outcomes because of it. There was a study done out of the University of Wales that I think it was about 700,000 heart, you know, heart emergency cases
Hmm.
were looked at from the ER, and there were about 8,000 deaths just because women weren't diagnosed quickly enough. And so when we think about the application of wearables, there could be an enormous benefit for women, and we can start our platform there and also get all the feedback that we want as we iterate and grow.
Gosh, even saving one life is probably worth creating a company around. Frankly,
Absolutely.
Stacy, can we start? I want to talk about sort of the evolution of the wearable space. The first Fitbit was 2009, right around there, give or take. How have you seen, kind of given your time at Fitbit and then obviously at Google and now at a company like Movano, how have you seen that technology evolve? I mean, I'm not wearing my Apple Watch right now. Just got an Apple Ultra. I'm so excited. I'm like really interested to see what that thing's like. But how has the technology evolved, and like how has that changed also from a consumer perspective too?
Yeah, I mean, I think what Fitbit did was really incredible. They made steps a currency. It's so ingrained in pop culture and how we talk about activity and bringing awareness through data. And then what they did was basically go to the most difficult place in the body to read heart rate, and they did a great job of that too. And then as we add features, we are leveraging Bluetooth in a way that we've never leveraged before. We're sending so many packets over a relatively complex protocol, and they did a great job of that as well. So they really put wearables on the map in a very impressive way. And then Apple has
Hmm.
really driven it home through their rings and essentially, at least in my view, having a mini phone on the wrist.
Yep.
You get all of your emails and text messages and phone calls, and you can do so much on that really tiny little computer. But of course, what I'm really interested in is how we drive forward on the health applications. What does it mean to build in a way that's going to be a painkiller for people? How are they going to manage different conditions? When we look at least in America, a majority of Americans are dealing with some sort of chronic condition. And then for those who aren't, they're trying to prevent it. And COVID has really accelerated us towards a world where we're tracking health and taking health into our own hands is incredibly important, particularly when you consider how overtaxed the healthcare system is, how busy doctors are, how
Yeah.
expensive that is. So I really see a world where we're providing medical grade data with hopefully FDA cleared devices that really bring health into users' hands and help facilitate a conversation with the doctor and drive awareness of some of these finer points that you really couldn't get information on unless you were with a doctor. But I think that these two worlds are merging.
From your perspective, the health component is super critical. I mean, these devices are saving lives, right? What are some of the outside of that, because that's a super important use case? What other ones are you seeing in terms of whether that's lifestyle improvement? I personally have gotten very into sort of sleep pattern and my sleep behavior and what I'm doing. When the kind of lights go off. What are some of the more important kind of use cases from your perspective outside of health even?
I mean, outside of health, I think there are a lot of different use cases, whether we're talking about, virtual reality and
Mm.
gaming, or we're talking about access and payments. I think people are starting to become more cognizant of what happens when they go into their phone or they need something in their phone. You know, I can make a payment for my Apple Pay, but if I open my phone, I might accidentally go into my email and then get distracted. And so I do think that there's a use case for a non-screen device when it comes to getting quickly through a turnstile when you go
Hmm.
BART, which is the local transit system around here.
Yep.
So I think outside of health, I see payments and access as being, really big use cases.
That's pretty cool. Any really obscure ones that you've seen come up that have kind of you've maybe turned your head sideways and say, "Why do we do that?" You mentioned one when we first met. You mentioned one. I won't say
Yeah.
it here unless if you want to bring it up. But
Yeah. No, I mean, so I think one of the issues with wearables is that just because we can do it doesn't necessarily mean we should. And I don't know if this is the example that I gave you when we talked before, but I've seen wearables measure bone salt, and I just
that
don't
was the one you
understand.
mentioned. Yeah.
I don't understand what that is. If I don't understand it and I'm immersed in this space, your average consumer doesn't understand it. And that's why I'm really focused on what is this user experience going to mean for her,
Hmm.
particularly for someone who isn't living and breathing this all day long. There's a lot of room for improvement in an onboarding process. How do we teach her, all of the different features? But then
Hmm.
also, how do we learn about her as she comes to us? What are her goals and what are her concerns? And
Hmm.
then how can we dynamically serve that information in a timely fashion? So it's a formula. And I don't necessarily think anybody has gotten it perfectly right. That's what I'm
How are
aiming for.
you? I mean, given sort of your product background, I'm sure that I know you probably have a VP of product or a head of product, but kind of thinking about your product background and the work you've done and the work going on at Movano, how are you thinking about the customer experience associated with the product? And you are focusing on rings, obviously, which is a beautiful ring. We'll talk about we'll mention the website at the end of the show, but how are you thinking about that experience from from website to delivery to putting it on to capturing information and really using sort of the application to leveraging some of the benefits of the product?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I touched on it a little bit before
Yeah.
around unfolding that onboarding experience really deliberately in a way that teaches her about the product, and also we have an opportunity to learn about her. And I think that wearables have done such a great job of helping fitness buffs optimize their performance. But where I see wearables going truly mass and really being for everyone is through a more simplified experience that meets the
Mm.
users where they are and really celebrates their progress. That isn't necessarily 10,000 steps a day. And that's certainly not to knock 10,000 steps a day, because I love that too. I probably don't get that, but
I
I
probably don't.
do.
I'm like thinking to myself,
Not anymore.
I think I had like 2,300 steps yesterday or so. I was like at my desk just plugging away.
Indeed, I have
But
many
but
of those days as well.
yeah. When you think about though that intersection between customer experience, product, UX, how might and kind of putting your strategy lens on it, how do you kind of bring those three things together for the product to work for the customer?
Well, I think it starts with asking the prospective customer what she
Mm.
wants. And certainly, we're starting with women, and women are not a monolith. So
Right.
you have to ask a lot of different women and then parse through the answers, seeing what rises to the top, and then, putting your technologist hat on and empathy hat on and really figuring out what works for her and then iterating. At the end of the day, a product is never finished. It launches and hopefully it lands, and then you're just going to change it again anyway. So it's a conversation. It's a
Mm.
conversation that we want to be having with our users, really listening to what it is that they're looking for.
Stacy, would you be able to, like, anything surprising maybe? I mean, don't share too much detail if but is there anything surprising in that research or that listening that you've done where the folks at Movano were like, well, maybe we've got to think about this differently?
I've been in the space for a while, so I can't say that I have been shocked by anything that I've heard, but the overwhelming majority of people are really looking for a whole health solution. And I think that what's different about it than what you might commonly see is that people aren't necessarily interested in diet or counting calories. It's not necessarily looking good, although I think everybody wants to feel good and look good. It's a little bit more subjective, which is what makes you feel healthy. I know that for me, I don't feel healthy if I don't get a full night of sleep, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Some people can run on fewer hours. So I think that tailoring the experience for what her goals are without being overly prescriptive on what that should be is a fine dance, but something that we're hoping to achieve.
That's really cool. How do you think, what does whole health system mean to you? Just for our listeners who may not know the term.
Yeah, sure. So I would consider whole health activity, sleep, heart health, mental health, mind body connection for sure, menstrual health,
Mm.
and kind of how that all fits together. So, one of the things that we're really going to be driving towards at Movano is really providing useful and actionable insights, which are harder to come up with than you would think, but really make an experience sticky and useful. And at the end of the day, the longer she's in our ecosystem, the more health benefits she should see.
Mm.
That's really what we're looking towards.
That's a good outcome. I'm curious to hear your perspective on the future of this space. We talked a little bit about it when we first met, wearables and other ways. It feels like, certainly, glasses or, something on your head is
Right.
coming pretty soon. Well, it's here now, obviously, but in new versions or new products coming out, I guess coming to market in the next year or two, it has real potential to even all your wearables to even be connecting. I love the concept of a ring. Obviously, like the watch, at some point, I'm sure these glasses will be, will digitize something, right? Where do you see it in 3 to 5 years? How is this all going to come together?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a couple key pieces that will be necessary for it to come together. One is that the sensor technology needs to continue to improve to get to medical grade accuracy. So I think there will be a lot of investment in that alone. I mean, certainly our focus is on that.
Yeah.
Battery life is going to have to improve. Certainly, if you're wearing something for several days at a time, that's ideal for getting these continuous measurements. And so that's always a balance. Any wearable company is constantly making trade offs between a teeny tiny little battery and an optimized performance. I think that the other thing is probably a little less to do with the wearable itself and just the transmission of the data. To be truly useful, I believe that the wearable data needs to connect through an EMR system, which is electronic medical records.
Mhm.
Obviously, this would be done, with patient consent. But if we're going to make this data useful for doctors, then we need to serve the data in a really snapshot fashion to them, so that way they can take action with their patients.
Very cool. Very cool. Where do wearables belong in the workplace? Maybe I'll ask it that way. I mean, I even think back to the sort of the COVID days when I was going into the office. I had a wearable around a lanyard. If we got too close to each other, the lights would turn red on us. It would know like the proximity.
Interesting.
If someone did have positive exposure, you had a different kind of light turn on, et cetera. I don't know
That's
how they
funny.
got that
I was going to
information. I
say
think.
that answer. I was going to say that answer,
Um,
Bill.
were you?
That's Yeah, I was going
I
to say
stole
that.
your answer. I'm so sorry.
No, that's quite
But
all
even
right.
think.
That's all right.
But I mean, I'll leave this to you. But like one of the things I think about just wellness generally in the workplace could be a
Yes.
really powerful use case. Letting you know, like, hey, you may not be mentally prepared or all there to be able to deliver 100% productivity today, right? And guiding employees or with the workforce, even not just employees, but the workforce, guiding them through a workday, even.
Yeah, that was the other one that I was going to mention. So you've somewhat read my mind. I think it's commonly understood that the more relaxed we are, the better work we do. If you're really stressed out and high strung, you're probably not doing your best work or your deep thinking. So helping workers who, especially workers who are sitting in front of a computer all day, maybe on Zoom calls all
Yeah,
day, manage their stress load, know when they're supposed to maybe take a break, help guide them through a meditation session. All has great applicability in the workforce. Ultimately, I would imagine if we were less stressed out, maybe we would be more productive. We don't need
mm,
to jam more Zoom meetings on our calendar in order to get better product.
for
But
sure.
ultimately, I see that as a great example for in the workplace.
Yeah, I really hope we start to use that as a society. I like being in customer experience. I work with a lot of contact center teams at the clients that we work with. And that is one of the most stressful jobs in America. One, it's not a very high paying job, but number two is you're just constantly on the phone. I mean, talk about Zoom calls and Zoom meetings every 30 minutes. Like think about like the auto dialer that like hits you, hits your queue and when it's backing up. There's just a lot of stress associated with that. And you're just no one calls the contact center to tell the company they're doing a great job, right? Like you're
Right.
dealing with people's problems all day. It's not easy work. It'd be wonderful to see something like that. I feel like a lot of the technology is more focused on how to make those calls like less in time, increasing productivity or more calls in less time versus, where's the technology that's actually going to help that individual actually lead a better life. I'd
Certainly.
love to see that
Yeah, and
at some point.
yeah, and there are companies working on it. There's an interesting company out of Minnesota called Neurable that's working on that right now.
Oh, cool.
On
Good.
smartphones.
Well, I'll have to check that out. Stacy, I ask each guest, it's not because I'm a lazy podcaster, but I ask each guest what question would you like to ask of my next guest? I think this is going to be a layup for you, but I'm curious to hear your answer anyway. I didn't time it this way. I literally just take the previous guest question and just, put it on to the next one. But my previous guest asked, what makes a great product experience and what is your favorite product?
So I actually spent some time thinking about this because I didn't want to give you the most obvious answers. Sure, I like my AirPod Pros. I like them, but I did not want to give you the most obvious answer. My family has something called a lettuce grow. And the reason why we love it is because it's aesthetically beautiful to look at. It's highly functional. It works really well. The setup out of the box was easy. And there's an element of delight, which I think is required for every high quality product. And the element of delight for this product is that it's made out of beach plastic. So we really love it. It gives us some fresh lettuce and different fruits and vegetables. So that is probably not the answer you were expecting. I know you wanted technology, but I gave you
I didn't know. I
equipment.
wanted the real answer.
Okay, well, you're farming into it.
I also have a lettuce grow. We got it during the pandemic because like we didn't really, one, there are benefits to doing it yourself. Number two is, obviously we're not really going to the grocery store and the delivery of stuff at the time, other products coming to our house, like lettuce and others, like real perishable stuff was just not great.
Yeah,
And we still have it we've got like my wife went like gangbusters on this thing. It's like the big 7-foot version with like the
right.
stack of like 6 or something like that. It's massive.
Yep,
But
we
you're
have it
right.
too.
Beautifully designed, creates a great product. I love the fact that it's built, with sustainability in mind, and you're eating something that you kind of grew in your backyard, right? Which is pretty special at the end of the
Yeah,
day. And there's a lot of just health benefits to that too. Yeah, but I
it's
love
so
that
convenient.
product.
Yep. You could just I don't know about you, but I just go break lettuce off and then we make salads out of it. I'm not sure I even wash it.
I, you know, that's funny. I have it next to the grill. So when I'm grilling or smoking something, I'm like picking stuff off of it and I'm just eating it right off of there. So I don't
That's
really
great.
watch it either. That's funny. But really, I did kind of roll my eyes at it, like, oh my gosh, just one more thing. And then I grew to love it. And it's a great product. By the way, this is not a product plug show, but nonetheless, folks who are interested, go check it out. All right, I want to turn the tables over to you for a second. What question would you have for my next guest?
So I think in this crazy world that we are living in right now, where we're bombarded by all sorts of insane news going on, and we're all working harder than we've ever worked before, my question is a little more personal around how do you find balance in your life? And how do you translate that into your working life?
Good question. Wow, that's a good one. I want to think about that myself too. Well, I'm excited to ask that one of my next guests. Hey, before I let you go, Stacy, first, thank you for your time today. But I'm curious, hey, where do you go for inspiration?
So my favorite place in the world is a dude ranch called Greenhorn Guest Ranch. And I go horseback riding for a week. It's by far the best therapy for me. And at home, I definitely engage in meditation, and I hit the weights, and I got a new puppy. I got myself an emotional support puppy.
Very well. That's still a lot of work. That's good.
What
kind of dog do you get? Do you mind me asking?
I got a mini schnauzer. Do you want to see her? She's right here.
Yeah.
She likes to sit.
For the record, Stacy, this is the first dog cameo on Be Customer Led, so I'm pretty excited.
Well, she's a good one.
Oh my gosh, how adorable is that dog?
Yes.
How old is she now?
She's 10 weeks old.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Well, welcome to the show. That's awesome. That's awesome. What a beautiful pup. Good luck, because puppies are, well, I've got two, but they're older, but they're still a lot of work. But good dogs. It's good. It's good to.
She has no idea where to go to the bathroom.
She'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I'm sure she'll figure it out. Stacy, thanks so much for coming on the show. Really interesting conversation. Really loved your perspective on this space. And it's one that I'm just really fascinated with and spend a lot of time reading on and just doing a lot of desk research on. I think it's going to fundamentally change the way we think about experience, or experiences, I should say, in a much deeper way than we might even realize as consumers and as humans. And loved having you on the show. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you. It's great to chat with you today.
Thanks so much. All right, everybody. Another great show. We'll see you next week. We're out.
Talk to you soon,
Thanks
everyone.
for listening to Be Customer Led with Bill Staikos. We are grateful to our audience for the gift of their time. Be sure to visit us at becustomerled.com for more episodes. Leave us feedback on how we're doing, or tell us what you want to hear more about. Until next time, we're out.